ago, I was talking to my brother and my parents, and we got into an interesting conversation about what do we do about famous or influential people who have done something really wrong. Well, my brother was talking about a trip he had taken, and he went with a friend to this museum, this art museum, and they got there, and the friend had helped, choose this place, assumed that they were interested, and then, a few steps into the exhibit, they're reading about the artist's personal life and came across something they found unsavory, and they were just no longer interested in any of the art, any of the work that person had done. They were ready to go. And I found that interesting because, unfortunately, there are plenty of examples. We talked about, Bill Cosby. Depending on your age, you might remember him from his stand-up comedy, or as America's sitcom dad, Dr. Huxtable on The Cosby Show, or that guy from Jell-O commercials. I grew up watching the Cosby Show and loved that, and a few years ago when all that came out about the abuse that he had done to others, it was more than disappointing, devastating. And then we're left with, well, can we not laugh at any Bill Cosby jokes? Those things that we would remember as a family and share, and inside jokes, and is that okay? What about artists? Can you separate the artist from their work? There's, for example, P. Diddy, Sean Combs. Do we not support his music anymore? Does basically earn him money? Are we supporting what the lifestyle that enabled him to take advantage of others? I think it gets even stickier when we get into the area of religion. There's a theologian named John Howard Yoder. I read his work when I was in seminary, and he taught us some amazing things about the way we interpret the text and the violence, and in light of what that does to others. One of his really well-known works is called The Politics of Jesus. He was a very, very influential theologian and a professor at a seminary. And then it came out that he had abused some of the young women who were his students. What do we do with that? Do we just throw out all of his books? We don't want to put those on the reading list. We don't want to support him. Do we just say, well, it was really important work, though, and you can't undo it. It's out there in the world, and so now the art is separate from the artist, and so we can still use that and not endorse what he did otherwise. But let's be honest, neither of those are really good options. Neither of those knee-jerk reactions really give the situation what it should, right? And that's what we tend to do. We either have that, okay, fine, cancel, we're just not going to go there. We're not going to let them have a platform anymore. Or, well, it doesn't really matter. The work is more important. We can ignore that. They're really popular. Today's Bible story asks us to wrestle with this very question. And I know some of you might wonder, why? Why do you do this to us? And to you I say, it's not me. It was the lectionary. It's in the list of passages to choose from this Sunday. Yes, I know I could have just gone off lectionary and picked something else, but I like to make life hard. For myself, mostly. But seriously, I thought about that. But it's come up a lot lately. And I thought, we just need to deal with this. We need to find a better way to work through this. Because I have a feeling we will have plenty of opportunity. Unfortunately, there will continue to be leaders, celebrities, pastors who let us down, who make poor choices. So I'd like to ask you, let's today try to resist that all or nothing binary thinking. And let's see what we can learn. Given that this is in the lectionary, first of all, it's in the Bible. So, spicy as it is, let's turn to 2 Samuel chapter 11. This is about the great King David. And we'll have the text straight up there, but I'm probably also going to make some editorial, interjections and explanatory remarks. So just be aware of that. In the spring, when kings go off to war, David sent Joab, that was his general, along with his servants and all the Israelites. That's probably a little bit of an exaggeration, but we get the point. Everybody else. And they destroyed the Ammonites, attacking the city of Rabbah. But David remained in Jerusalem. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, that's our first hint that things are gonna go really bad, okay? Because right off the bat, in the first verse, in the spring when kings go off to war, David remained in Jerusalem. David is not where he should be. That's what it says. One evening, David got up from his couch and was pacing back and forth on the roof of the palace. From the roof, he saw a woman bathing. I want to make a little explanatory remark here because this is another place where if we think from our own cultural context, this sounds really weird. Like nobody takes a bath on the roof of their house, and if you do, maybe you should expect people to see you. That is not the case in the architecture and setting of Jerusalem, this several centuries before Christ's era. So, in that time, the houses were not totally, They're not totally sealed off like ours, with walls and roofs on all the floors. It was quite common that there would be a second story that was open air. It would have some walls, so like you couldn't see over to your neighbor, but it was open to the air. And that was usually not an issue, because the only place taller than all of the houses, they're all about the same, the only place taller, significantly, would be the palace, the king's palace. So he has a unique vantage point. She is not doing anything strange or weird or reckless. None of that is indicated in the text. This is perfectly normal thing to do. It is just not perfectly normal that the king is able to see you. Because where should the king be right now? Off to war. From the roof, he saw a woman bathing. The woman was very beautiful. David sent someone and inquired about the woman. The report came back, "Isn't this Eliam's daughter Bathsheba, the wife of Uriah the Hittite?" So David sent messengers to get her. When she came to him, he had sex with her. Now she had been purifying herself after her monthly period. That's also called foreshadowing. Then she returned home. The woman conceived and sent word to David. "I'm pregnant," she said. Then David sent a message to Joab. "Send me Uriah the Hittite." Now, Joab did not get to be general by asking questions. So Joab sent Uriah to David. When Uriah came to him, David asked about the welfare of Joab and the army and how the battle was going. Normal things that a king would randomly pull some soldier off the battlefield for. That was sarcastic. I'm just checking, make sure you're following. Then David told Uriah, "Go down to your house and wash your feet." Feet is a euphemism. We following? Okay. Uriah left the palace, and a gift from the king was sent after him. However, Uriah slept at the palace entrance with all his master's servants. He didn't go down to his own house. David was told Uriah didn't go down to his own house. So David asked Uriah, "Haven't you just returned from a journey? Why didn't you go home?" The chest, he means the Ark of the Covenant, and Israel and Judah are all living in tents, Uriah told David. "And my master Joab and my master's troops are camping in the open field. How could I go home and eat, drink, have sex with my wife? I swear on your very life I will not do that." Now, let's just also catch up here to say, why is David doing this? Okay, the obvious is, if Uriah comes home, sleeps with his wife, and then comes back from battle and she has a baby bump, he'll just be like, cool. That would be fine, right? That's obviously David's plan, but it's not working. Then David told Uriah, stay here one more day. Tomorrow I'll send you back. So Uriah stayed in Jerusalem that day. The next day, David called for him, and he ate and drank, and David got him drunk. David is thinking, maybe he won't be so principled when he's drunk. In the evening, Uriah went out to sleep in the same place alongside his master's servants, but he did not go down to his own home. The next morning, David wrote a letter to Joab and sent it with Uriah. He wrote in that letter, "Place Uriah at the front of the fiercest battle, and then pull back from him so that he will be struck down and die." Let us hear what the Spirit is speaking to God's people. That felt weird, didn't it? What do we do with this mess? Why is this here? Now, if you know more of the story, I actually love what happens in 2 Samuel 12, but you're going to have to wait to find out about that. Leaving it here is really awkward. We can assume, if you want to read the rest of the chapter, you can, but as I said earlier, Joab did not get to be the general by questioning David, so he does exactly as he's told, even though it is a really stupid military move, and he actually risks the lives of other soldiers besides Uriah, one of his best, and he gets killed. So then David takes Bathsheba as his umpteenth wife. He's already got several, too many to count. So our faith hero, King David, has raped a woman and arranged murder to cover it up. They don't teach this in VBS, do they? But it's here in our Bible, and let me tell you, it didn't have to be. Just to underscore this point, 1 and 2 Samuel, those two books, they tell the stories of the end of the era of the judges with Samuel, the prophet, the first king of Israel, Saul, his rise, his downfall, and the stories of David, his rise and downfall. And then 1 and 2 Chronicles retells many of the same stories. The chronicler, that's what biblical interpreters, biblical scholars call whoever theoretically pulled together those stories. The chronicler was a bit more selective, however, in choosing to highlight the things that would make David look the best. This is not in Chronicles, but it is in 2 Samuel. It is in our Bible. It is therefore in the faith story tradition that comes down to us today, that has formed communities, and here we are. It is here. So I guess we have three options. We could skip this, because in chapter 12, David ends up repenting. He says he's sorry, so it's all good, right? We could just, it's fine, been redeemed, good to go. Or we could say, okay, big asterisk on all King David stories. He is no longer just the man after God's own heart. And after every psalm, we also have to say, and remember, he's a rapist and a murderer. neither of those seem appropriate options to me. People are messy. People include us. And I think there is a better way to deal with this. So I'm going to offer my way, my insights that I have gleaned from my study of the Bible, from my study of church history, the story of Professor Yoder and all. Here's what I suggest. Number one, listen to those who've been harmed. Now, in this case, we can't ask Bathsheba. We can't ask for her perspective. We can't interview her. Her voice was not considered important enough to record. She had no say in any of this. And obviously, we have no opportunity to discover firsthand her thoughts on this event. We can study the rest of this series of stories, and in fact, she does appear again later. We can learn about what happens as the outcome of this event. Spoilers. The baby dies as punishment for David. Sounds kind of like punishment for Bathsheba too, but apparently that was collateral damage. But she goes on to bear David another son, Solomon. Might have heard of him. He becomes the next king. And she has a lot to do with that. So we can learn about how she did make choices when she had the ability. But we can also learn from those who have been harmed by the interpretive tradition. When I was in seminary, I remember a class, and I don't even remember which class this was, but a woman shared with our group that she had gone to her pastor to tell him that her husband had been unfaithful. And he told her that like Bathsheba committing adultery with David, she had either been too available, too beautiful. She had been where she wasn't supposed to have been. She must have borne some responsibility. To that I say, excuse you. That is not supported by the text at all. There has been harm because there have been centuries of interpreters, of biblical scholars who have desperately tried to save King David's reputation by shifting some of this blame to Bathsheba. And they were successful for a very, very long time. Not on my watch. We need to listen to people who've been harmed. Now, by that, I don't mean we necessarily have to accept the claims that anybody makes. What I'm saying is when people tell us they've been harmed, let's believe that they have been harmed. Second, let us not add to or continue enabling the harm. So, in this case, part of my commitment as a biblical scholar and as a pastor and interpreter is to point out the harm that's been done with this traditional interpretation, to show that that is not coming from the text, but that was coming from the world, the needs of those who have interpreted it before. And to stop that line, to not continue that. Just talking about logical consequences, if we have someone who is in a influential position, who's a leader, who has power, and they abuse it, logic dictates that we not let them have any more power. That we don't give them additional responsibilities or let them continue to be in a place where they can continue to do harm. That just makes sense. And this is where then we ask these questions about, does supporting the art support the person who did the harm? I'm not saying that's an easy yes or no answer, by the way. I'm just saying this is where we ask that question and do that work. So by listening to that music, by downloading songs or the Bill Cosby material, if we are financially supporting that continuing, we should consider that that is adding to the harm. In cases where the wrongdoer is not alive anymore, that may be a little bit more fuzzy, That may be different. And then that leads into my third step. Let's redistribute power by centering the stories of those affected by the abuse. In listening to those who've been harmed and not enabling others to be harmed, let us then continue, for example, here. My suggestion, obviously, is not to ignore the story of King David and what he did to Bathsheba. Now, when I come across Bibles, especially study Bibles that have little subtitles over different sections, some of them will read David's adultery with Bathsheba or the adultery of David and Bathsheba. I cross those out because they are wrong, and I feel free to do the same. But then let's tell the story, but let's highlight the stories of integrity and resilience that we can find. How about the story of Uriah the Hittite? The Hittite, that doesn't probably mean much to us these days, but in those times, and to the first readers and hearers of these stories, they would have gone, that's interesting. The Hittites are sworn enemies of the Israelites. Uriah must be a mercenary. He's either a hired gun, or he has married into the household of Israel and given up his loyalty, his citizenship in his former people group, and given his loyalty to the king of Israel. Uriah is a man of integrity. He did not compromise his principles, and it was costly. But let's tell that story. And then, let's tell the stories of what God can do with sinful people. Because I think that's part of why that this is still in here. Why this story was not sanitized from our Bibles is because people are messy. God knows people are messy. God knows that we are messy, and at times we are both people of integrity who've made good choices and people who have messed up. People who have chosen to abuse power, intentionally or not. And yet, that is exactly who God uses. God continues to use King David. So we don't take his stories out and say he was a terrible person because he was a rapist and a murderer, therefore he never did anything good. On the contrary, he did a lot of good. And we tell both of those stories because that's honest. Just telling the hero King David stories and sanitizing it doesn't do justice to Bathsheba's and Uriah's. And just telling the story of David, the rapist and murderer, doesn't show what God can do with even rapists and murderers. And that's what we have here. So what I think is important is that we have honest conversations. That we don't avoid the messy or spicy parts of the Bible. That we don't just go, well, we're going to pretend that didn't happen. But that we tell them anyway. We wrestle with the stories. We say, look at this. Look at this mess. Doesn't it look familiar? We all know what mess looks like. We're all in the middle of it. And knowing that full well, God chose to enter into our humanity, to send Jesus to know all of the good and all of the bad, and to redeem all of it, because nothing is beyond the reach of God's love. If you have felt the nudge of the Holy Spirit this morning and are not completely freaked out by a pastor that talks about this stuff from the pulpit, I cannot promise it will not happen again. Sorry. Then I would love to talk to you about the next step in your journey of faith. If you want to be a place where everybody is good and perfect all the time and we always make the right choices, let me know where that is. It's not here. I mean, we're awesome. Like, this is the best ever. But we have mess because we're people. And if you want to be a place where we can be honest about that and we love everybody anyway, then you found your spot. If you would like to, my contact information is on the bottom of that prayer requests page. You can call, text, or email me, and we can have a time to visit about what might be next in your journey. If you would like to share a decision, if you're ready to make a decision to give your life to Christ for the first time, or reaffirm your faith in Christ, or join with this faith community, and you want to make that this morning, then please come and share that with me. We will celebrate as we stand and sing our final song.
Jesus, I have promised to serve thee to the end. Be thou forever near me, my master and my friend. I shall not fear the battle if thou art by my side, nor wander from the pathway if thou wilt be my guide. O Jesus, thou hast promised to all who follow thee, that where thou art in glory, there shall thy servant be. And Jesus, I have promised to serve thee to the end. Oh, give me grace to follow my master and my friend.
Thank you again for choosing to begin your week in worship with us. We are so grateful that you have found us, and that we hope you have found your time with us meaningful. And I invite you, as you go this week, I pray that you will have a wonderful week, and that you will remember whatever mess you encounter, it is not too much for God. Go in peace.